Forget the Sentinels. The biggest villain in X-Men history has always been Charles Xavier's decision making. Now, before y'all start blowing up the comments, please tell me I'm lying. The man has faked his death, disappeared more times than your homeboy when it's time to help somebody move, kept life-changing secrets from his own team, adopted a mansion full of traumatized teenagers instead of sending them to therapy. No, he just erased their memories and shit. And then had the audacity to leave the entire school to Magneto. Charles has never seen a bad decision he couldn't make even worse. Matter of fact, that's probably why this podcast exists. What's good, y'all? Welcome to Previously on X-Men, where every week we break down the drama, the trauma, and Charles Xavier's latest bad decision. I'm your host, Ebony, and if you're an X-Men fan, a Saturday morning cartoon survivor, or somebody who spent the last season yelling, "What the hell?" at your TV, you found your people. Welcome. Now, with season 2 dropping July 1st, I figured before we jump into weekly reviews, we gotta revisit the season that reminded everybody exactly why the X-Men have always been Marvel's deepest, most layered franchise. Because this wasn't nostalgia, this wasn't fan service, this was Marvel looking us dead in the eye and saying, "Oh, y'all want a peek?" Season 1 gave us politics, trauma, family drama, relationship mess, genocide, clones, time travel, and somehow it even got people apologizing to Cyclops. That's when I knew. Yeah, the writers went deep into their bag of tricks for season 1 of X-Men 97. So, let's run it back. Let's start with episode 1. To Me, My X-Men. Right from jump, the show lets you know this ain't the 90s cartoon anymore. Charles Xavier is gone. The mansion feels empty. Everybody's grieving differently. Scott's trying to lead while carrying the weight of the entire team. Jean is preparing to become a mother while still trying to be the emotional glue holding everybody together. Jubilee is wrestling with growing up. Rogue and Gambit are finally acting like grown adults instead of spending 30 years flirting across a room. And Logan. Well, Logan still look like he smelled like cigarettes and bad decisions. Never gonna get that hype. I just don't understand it. Then Charles reaches up from beyond the grave one last time and starts another family argument like he likes to do because he's toxic as fuck. Because his will reveals he left everything, the school, the X-Men, his dream, to Magneto. Bruh, imagine your granddad passing away and leaving the family business to the neighbor he's been arguing with since the civil rights movement. Make that make sense. Scott's face said exactly what all of us were thinking. Charles, what the hell? But we say that often about Charles. But that's what makes this such a brilliant first episode. Because instead of asking, can Magneto lead? The show asks, did Charles believe in Magneto more than his own students? That's a way deeper question. Scott also starts what I like to call the Cyclops apology tour. Because folks spent years, and I do mean years, calling this man boring. Meanwhile, this brother been leading traumatized superheroes since he was a teenager himself. The disrespect has been insane. Okay, let's go to episode 2. Mutant Liberation begins. This episode belongs to Magneto, which I'm actually a fan of Magneto. I fuck with him the long way. And I gotta give credit where credit is due. This is probably the most nuanced version of Magneto we've ever gotten. He's trying. Like, really trying. He's wearing the suit. He's speaking at the United Nations. He's quoting Charles. He's trying diplomacy. He's basically on his best behavior. Not gonna get any better than that. The problem though, Humans keep reminding him why he stopped fucking with them. It's always the humans. And that's what makes this episode brilliant. Because Magneto isn't asking, can humans change? He's asking, can I? That's way more interesting. Then comes the Sentinel attack. And Magneto risks his own life to save everybody, humans included. For one brief moment, it feels like coexistence might actually work. Then Storm loses her powers. And whoo, sheesh, that hurt. Because Storm isn't just powerful. Storm is power. Seeing her suddenly powerless feels wrong. Like watching Superman Afraid to Fly. Or hearing Beyonce forgot the lyrics, which would never fucking happen. It just don't sit right. You can feel the fear behind every line. So, episode 3, Fire Made Flesh. Now, the writer said, let's get messy. Jean Grey isn't Jean Grey. Except, she is. Except, there's another Jean Grey. Except, she's actually Madeline Pryor? The fuck? Everybody needed name tags. Everybody. Scott confused. Jean confused. Madeline confused. Baby Nathan's confused. I'm confused. My next door neighbor's dog is fucking confused. But somehow, it works. Because this episode refuses to make Jean and Madeline enemies. Neither one is the villain. They're both victims. Mr. Sinister stole their identities, manipulated their memories, played with their lives. And honestly, somebody should have jumped Sinister way sooner. He's one of those villains where every time he appears on screen, you're like, ew. Episode 4, Life Death Part 1. This episode got 2 personalities. First half, pure millennial nostalgia. Jubilee gets trapped inside a video game inspired by the original animated series. And if you grew up watching that cartoon, this was basically fan service done right. But underneath all the nostalgia is actually a story about growing up. Jubilee realizes she can't keep chasing childhood forever. And honestly, neither can we. But we kind of can, because we have childhood. We have money now to spend on things that we couldn't get in our childhood. So we kind of can't keep chasing childhood forever. The second half completely flips the mood. Storm is still trying to figure out who she is without her powers. And this is where the writers start separating this version of Storm from previous adaptations. Instead of making her weak, they make her human. And there's nothing weak about humanity. She's scared. She's angry. She's questioning herself. But she's still carrying herself like royalty because she's a queen. Because Storm's powers never made her a queen. They just gave the queen lightning. And that's one of my favorite writing decisions of the entire season. Now, before we move on to the absolute emotional devastation that is episodes 5 through 10, I need everybody to mentally prepare themselves. Because after this, nobody is safe. And I mean no motherfucking body. So, y'all ready? Because, listen to me now. Because from this point on, X-Men 97 stopped being that cartoon we used to watch back in the day as kids and became one of the best comic book adaptations Marvel has ever made. Alright, let's get into episodes 5 through 10. Episode 5. Remember it. Man, I don't even know where to start. Because before we talk about what happened, let's talk about why it worked. The first half of this episode is beautiful. Genosha finally feels like hope. Mutants from all over the world are laughing, dancing, living, planning futures for the first time in forever. Nobody's hiding who they are. You got Nightcrawler cracking jokes, Rogue and Gambit actually looking happy, Magneto smiling. Do y'all understand how rare it is to catch Magneto smiling from happiness anyway? Like, it's like seeing a unicorn. That should have been the first red flag. Anytime comic book characters get too happy, somebody about to die. Then it happens. The Sentinels attack. And just like that, hope gets ripped away. What makes this episode hit harder than most superhero deaths is that the writers made us care about Genosha first. They didn't just destroy a city. They destroyed an idea. The idea that mutants could finally have peace. Thousands die, leaders die, families die, dreams die. And then Gambit. Oh my God. Can we have a conversation about Gambit? Because for years, movies, cartoons, even some comic fans reduced this man to the dude with the accent that throws cards. Nah, not today. This episode reminded everybody exactly who Remy LeBeau is. Y'all got Gambit fucked up. A hero. Not because he was the strongest, not because he had Omega level powers, because when everybody else was running, he ran toward the danger. His final sacrifice wasn't flashy just to look cool. It was earned. It was selfless. And when he looked at Rogue one last time, yeah, I was screaming at the TV when he died. Like, I was literally screaming. It was terrible. Marvel owed us counseling after that. Like, it was fucking terrible. On the Magneto got a point meter, it's at an 8.5 out of 10. Because after surviving something like Genosha, can you really blame him for losing faith in humanity? To stop fucking with the human race. I kind of agree with him, and I most definitely understand him. And that's what great writing looks like. Got me sympathizing with Magneto, but I've always sympathized with Magneto because he's a better leader than Charles. Let's roll into episode 6. Life, Death, Part 2. Now, after emotionally kicking our asses in episode 5, the writers slow everything down. Storm continues her journey with Forge. And I know some folks wanted more action, but this episode was necessary. Storm isn't fighting Sentinels. She's fighting herself. Who am I? If I can't do the one thing everybody knows me for? Honestly, that's a question a lot of people can relate to. Who are you after losing the job, the relationship, the title, the dream? Storm's story stops being about mutant powers and becomes about identity. That's why it works. Forge catches a lot of heat from fans, but I actually like him here. Not because of the romance, which was cute, because he reminded Storm she still mattered, even when she couldn't control the weather. By the end, Storm doesn't just get confidence back, she gets herself back. Let's roll into episode 7. Now, let me just say this. If anybody watched this episode and thought Rogue was doing too much, congratulations. Y'all have clearly never lost somebody you love, because Rogue is grieving. And grief ain't pretty. She ain't trying to hear logic. She ain't trying to hear strategy. She definitely ain't trying to hear everything happens for a reason. Boo. Please stop saying that to people. No. She wants answers. She wants revenge. She wants some motherfucking body to pay. And honestly, I can't even be mad at her, because she's like me. This episode lets Rogue be ugly. Emotionally ugly. And I respect that. Too many superhero stories expect women to cry pretty. Rogue gets to be furious, broken, obsessive, reckless, human. And that's real. Then Nightcrawler spends half the episode trying to remind everybody revenge ain't healing. It's one of the best uses of Kurt I've seen in years, because leave it to the most religious dude on the team to become everybody's therapist. which they should have been getting therapy all along. Anyway, somebody needed to listen. Whew. Episode 8, Tolerance is Extinction, Part 1. Now, here's where the season starts putting all of the puzzle pieces together. Enter Bastion, or as I like to call him, the final boss of Facebook comments. Everything we've been watching, the Prime Sentinels, the conspiracies, the fear, the manipulation, it all comes back to him. And here's what makes Bastion scary. He doesn't see himself as evil. He genuinely believes he's saving humanity. Kind of reminds me of somebody that's South African that's infiltrated our government. But anyway, those are always the most dangerous villains. The ones convinced they're the hero. Meanwhile, Prime Sentinels are popping up everywhere. Imagine finding out your coworker, your neighbor, your cousin been a Sentinel this whole time. Yeah. Absolutely fucking not. Trust issues unlocked. Like, for real. Then we get one of my favorite moments of the season. Cyclops tells Professor X, I'm done blindly following you. Thank you, Scott. Baby, about time. Seriously, all y'all need to revolt against that man. Scott spent this whole season proving leadership doesn't mean obedience. Sometimes the people you admire need to be challenged and brought down a couple of pegs. And Charles needed that reality check badly. Yeah, he needed that. All right, episode 9. We getting close to the end, y'all. Tolerance is Extinction, Part 2. This episode belongs to Magneto. Again, love him. And here's where things get uncomfortable. Because after Genosha, after everything humanity has done, Magneto decides, I'm done asking. He shuts down Earth's power, throws the planet into chaos, and basically says, if mutants can't live in peace, nobody gets to live in peace. Now, do I agree? Yes. I hope y'all didn't think I was going to say no. Yes, absolutely. But here's why Magneto is one of Marvel's greatest characters. His pain always makes sense. His actions don't, but they do. That's the difference. He's not evil because he enjoys suffering. He's a Holocaust survivor who spent his entire life watching history repeat itself over and over and over again and over again. His methods are wrong. His fear, unfortunately, feels real and is real. Like, it's a fact. That's why people love Magneto. People like me. We need a Magneto to come save us right now. Not because he's always right, because he's understandable. And that's much scarier. All right, we in the final episode, y'all. Tolerance is Extinction, Part 3, the finale. Man, whew. This was cinema. Scott and Jean finally fight like the power couple they're supposed to be. Oh, Storm comes back looking like Mother Nature personally sponsored her return. She is Mother Nature. Rogue is throwing punches, powered entirely by grief. Nightcrawler is teleporting like his rent is due. Beast is doing science things. Jubilee finally gets her hero moment. Everybody contributes, and that's what makes the finale special. Nobody gets pushed aside. Nobody feels useless. This actually feels like the X-Men. A team, the best team in Marvel, in my opinion. Not the Wolverine show featuring everybody else. Again, he is not David Ruffin, and everybody else is not just the Temptations. Fuck out of here. Thank you. Somebody finally remembered there are other mutants in this universe and on this team. Then Bastion falls. Charles and Magneto have one final emotional confrontation. And once again, neither one is completely right. Neither one is completely wrong. Charles is always wrong. He's not right. No, he's not right. That's X-Men. Then the ending. Everybody gets scattered across time. Ancient Egypt. The future. Different timelines. I can't wait. I'm so excited. And the writers basically looked at us and said, see y'all next season, Marvel. It sure did. Left us high and fucking dry. And made us wait damn near 2 years for this shit. You ain't have to leave us hanging like that though, you know. So after watching the whole season again, I realized this story was never really about superheroes. It's about grief, identity, hope, forgiveness, and asking one impossible question. How many times can people hurt you before you stop believing they'll ever change? That's the question Xavier and Magneto have been arguing about for decades. Season 1 didn't answer it. It just reminded us why the conversation matters. Man, that's enough mutant mess for one episode. I had so much fun revisiting this season. If this is your first time checking out Previously on X-Men, welcome to the family. Well, I'm sure this is everybody's first time checking out Previously on X-Men, because this is episode 0 actually. Starting July 1st, we're switching up from recap mode to reaction mode. Within 2 hours of every new episode of X-Men 97 Season 2 dropping, I'll be right back here breaking down everything. The Easter eggs, the comic book references, the character moments, the symbolism, the stuff you missed, the stuff I missed, the theories, and of course, Charles Xavier's newest terrible decision. Because he's going to make plenty of them because he sucks. So, if you're an X-Men fan who likes deep dives with a little sarcasm, a little foolishness, a little southern charm, and a whole lot of love for these characters, you found your podcast. Tell another mutant to tell another mutant. Share the show. And let's make Previously on X-Men the spot for X-Men fans everywhere. Well, peeps, until next time, watch your six, trust no telepath, and if Charles Xavier says, I probably should have told y'all this sooner, run. I'll catch y'all on the next episode of Previously on X-Men. Peace.